Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Estate Investment Nomad podcast. Today, we are with Marwan Sallam, and we're going to be covering some golden visa topics and comparing three different countries, Greece, Egypt, and Mexico. Welcome to the show, Marwan. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Natalie. And thank you, Natalie, for hosting me. And hello, everyone, to the audience.
First, let's start with you. First, where you're from and how you came into this industry to start focusing on investing internationally.
So, actually, it came from my parents. And in general, Egyptian culture, we have a saying that the real estate is always the what's it called? Like the good son, right? The real estate is always like the good son. And when we say a good son is the son that you invest in, and then when you grow up, it will take care of you. So in general, the Egyptian culture is very heavily and like very heavily into real estate, and you kind of grow up in that culture where like your parents are always buying properties or buying lands and developing them. So that exists, and I've been with my father and my mother doing those transactions. And what triggered us to go internationally was political and economic instability in Egypt a little bit. Like since 2011, like there has been like widespread in Middle East events. I don't want to go into it as much, but basically the impact or the outcome is that it depreciated quickly the value of the Egyptian pound. And from there, we decided to the need of diversification. And what happened at this point is that we did have I studied a little bit in Sweden, and a lot of my cousins studied in Greece, and they went to like they scouted investments and they reported it back to us, and like fast forward 10 years, they founded their own company. So we worked with them and they helped us find those key properties back then before like the golden visa becomes popular. And it was a great hedge to diversify, and it was a great hedge to save our income. So that's where it came in, because before it became, even like at some point it was even more difficult to get money out of Egypt, we managed to get it out sooner. And that's where like when you mentally shift that you don't like there's opportunities outside of your country, a lot of things open up. A lot of things open up, which also brings me also to Mexico, because it's in a unique position. I've always liked how and read about Mexico, like how a lot of people since COVID have relocated to Mexico, and a lot of the numbers when it comes to tourism and all of that was is very is very big. Like when like basic research shows that Mexico is a promising place and has always been, and even being so far away. And that's where like I feel like there's an opportunity there, and that's what brings me and my family as well here to see and scout for the same properties.
Interesting. So from Egypt, you ended up with some knowledge in Greece as well, and but then you
But
mentioned that you lived in Dubai for a little while.
yeah,
What are you there, and how is it different than home?
so let's put it in different categories, right? So Egypt is a not really a mature market, right? So, and when I say not really a mature market, I don't talk about like the prices and whatnot. Like I would say, like a lot of places, a lot of locations have reached a maturity level, but there's still a lot of opportunities when it comes to off plan. And I'm a big beach. I'm bullish on beaches in general. So I feel beach properties in Egypt are worth the investment, even though they are being more and more on the premium side. However, when I say like it's still not mature, I'm talking about policies and the way transactions happen between each other and between you and a developer, for example. Unlike in UAE things are like since the crash, things have been very governed. And I think like UAE presents a gold standard, given the escrow kind of form that they do. Everything is governed by and a body in the middle that governs everything. That you send the money, and then to that UAE authority, UAE Real Estate Authority or Investment Authority. I don't recall the name exactly, and then it It gives the money as based on the developers where they are in the building cycle or in the construction, right? So a lot of times, like when you see in UAE, you'll see that it offers a sort of security, right? So people trust the UAE based on these policies that are put in place. The same cannot be said in Egypt, and that could be a problem or could be an opportunity. Depends on which lens you look at it. For me, it looks like for me it's an opportunity because if you know the right people in Egypt, they can guide you to the right directions, to the right developers that have a track record of delivering even though there's no protections of these places that are set to protect investors in that place. So you deal directly with the developer, and you take the risk with them. That said, there are good investments in UAE, there are bad investments in Egypt, but of course that comes that the risk is a little bit higher in Egypt, but that also means that the growth, even when you count for inflation, is a bit higher as well. Is much higher. The ceiling is much higher. I believe the ceiling is much higher. Is much higher, especially again when you talk to me about places that are by the beach. We're talking about there was just report this report issued a couple of weeks ago that already 88% of the beachfronts in Egypt have been sold to private investors, global private investors. So we're talking about only 12% left. So literally the shores are emptying up in Egypt, literally. So and the investors that invest in, like, unlike the rest of Egypt, like of course like New Car and whatnot, the investors who invest in the beaches in Egypt are all international. Yes, not the typical international portfolio like in Mexico, Canadians and Americans, given the proximity of Canadians and Americans to Mexico. I would say the same proximity aligns with Gulf investors and Egyptians who always lived abroad. And you look at the similarities, it's kind of similar because the Gulf have a higher income, and the Egyptians who live abroad also have a higher income. Like, for example, Mexicans that live in the United States or Canada, they tend to have a higher income and they tend to bring that money and retire or invest in real estate in Egypt. So that's that. Plus, bear in mind, mm, um, like a lot of people miss out or don't pay attention to people who live, for example, in the UAE. People who have like a personal banking relationship, like they've been living in the UAE for a long time, they can get mortgages. Egypt is still getting into the mortgage game, but that is a good thing and a bad thing. But mostly, a lot of people view it as why the real estate industry in Egypt has not crashed per se like the UAE, because everything is financed directly by the developers, and people are not usually don't get the mortgages in Egypt because the interest rates are very high. So it doesn't really make sense. And it's not as comfortable as like the direct financing from off-plan developers in Egypt. So, but those who live in the UAE, for example, they get access to this. They get access to the UAE banking and to a stable currency, more stable currency that makes they can get interest rates of 3 to 6%, and they can get good deals by buying in cash directly with the developers at anywhere between 30 to 60% discounts, technically, if you call them a discounts. But you and I know that it's not really that's the real value, but they just plug in the interest rate, right? But they get that. And when you get the discount, and a lot of people play this game, they sell their premium location because they bought it on cash. Usually developers give cash buyers like bundle deals. They buy multiple properties in unique locations in their developments because they get the commission right away as well. And once these guys buy them, and let's say 1 year, 2 years later, when a phase is delivered, they start selling that phase at a much lower rate than let's say the developers, because if they release another phase, you technically are competing with the developer that offer fixed or more flexible time, but you already made, let's say, around 10-20%. That used to be a lot of means a lot of people were doing this to make a lot of money. I'd say it's becoming less and less available right now because there has been a ceiling in terms of like what you can do in that, and now the policies in Egypt has picked up because they noticed that a lot of people inflated the prices. They said a lot of prices in Egypt. In Greece is a very different story, right? In Greece is basically like similar to the diversification story, and a lot uh, people forget that given the political unrest that happened, a lot of Egyptians, a lot of people in the region, their passport strength has diminished, and that means less access, less options, and less travel opportunities. And maybe if you want to do a business conference or anything, you're going to have to wait for 2-3 months to get an appointment for the Schengen visa. So a lot of people are considering, like when the golden visa thing started in Spain, it was really popular for those who knew how to get their money out and who sent their kids to study in Spain. And when it closed, then the Greek one opened. Greek even has a cultural proximity to Egypt, to Egyptians. Like Alexandria was built by the greatest Greek of them all, Alexander the Great. And there's always been this proximity in culture. So people are familiar with Greece. People have had travel, like older generations have spent a lot of time in Greece, and they kind of feel like it's not really a different country. And you can today go in places like Gulfada and you'll hear Arabic. A lot of times you'll hear Arabic, especially in Egyptian religious, like in Islamic religious holidays when people travel. You'll find those like as you'll find these are seasons in Greece, even though Greece does not celebrate that. So when that happened, a lot of people started to invest and take their money there because, like again, and in the UAE, it doesn't offer much benefits except the golden visa, which is a 10-year visa, but it only gives you access to the UAE, which you can get, in different ways. Like you can open a company and employ yourself and get yourself a working visa, right? Like there's multiple ways that you can. UAE is a pretty welcoming place, but the Eurozone is not really welcoming to Egyptians or welcoming to many nationalities. So one way to people look for is to invest in the golden visa. And the way people from that culture look at it is like, yeah, I'm buying a property. Maybe it will not, maybe like worst case scenario, the property value will not get up, but I'm hedging and I'm putting my property and my money in euro. So if I don't make money off the real estate, I would have saved my currency and made money from the euro Egyptian rate. That's the bet that people are placing. Plus that, like I get free access, like I get like included in it, like the golden visa for me and my family. Maybe like, my kids will leverage like the European education. All of these things are taken into consideration, and I don't have to wait. And if I decide to live at some point in Greece, I could get the citizenship. Like a lot of people think of it that way, even though like the Greek citizenship is very difficult. It's very difficult. You're going to have to learn Greek and you have to really integrate into the society. But that's the way of thinking, right? Like it's all about access. So people are looking at it from an access perspective, and you're putting your money in a different, like you're not putting it in the bank, you're putting it in an asset, and that asset you can decide to rent it out like we did in Greece. Like, so we're renting out our asset. It I don't remember like in terms of percentage how much percent it gets us, but I think we're talking about the average world like around 6 to 8%, like net. Like that's what we're talking about there. So yeah, that's the mentality we're talking about.
No, I like the fact that you mentioned that, you're from Egypt and then you're looking at different places to go based on that.
Of course.
Pets, cash, you've done this before. And as you mentioned, the Greek golden visa started after, the Spanish closed, and now Portugal also closed their golden visa door.
Exactly.
Through investment. And we're really excited because we're in real estate, right? Like we were thinking what real estate benefits you can get besides just buying the property and getting the rental income. How can you get that extra benefit, which for us was immigrations? What part of the immigration or which country was similar or open? You mentioned the cash. How can you compare the cash buys? Because Greece to Egypt, since they didn't have a strong banking system, or the economy was, up and down, the currency also was fluctuating. At least in Mexico or Dubai, if you buy cash, you get a deal. But Greece and Egypt, I believe, is more like it's expected, right?
Yeah,
Given
yeah,
that's
it's
the deal.
expected. It's expected, especially like in Greece, I would say before the golden visa become popularized among the Greeks themselves, you could get a good deal, right? You could get a good deal. But I guess like now that it's become a policy and like now like they increase the price for the golden visa, I believe like it inflated some certain properties, and a lot of Greeks know that. So they inflate their properties,
Right.
their property value to the golden visa prices.
Yeah.
So this is where like, it makes more sense to work with the developer, because now the loopholes there, like there are certain places where it's still under the lower ticket, which is 250,000 euros, as opposed to 400,000 euros now. So like Piraeus is one of the loophole places where, like, not loophole, like it's one of those places where you can buy with the lower ticket, because like they want to direct the money to reinvest in this place, because the Greek government knows that, this is like investors can make a place look better, can bring in a lot of cash flow. And let's not forget, Greece had a problem economically, like when when they were almost defaulted. So it pushed them to be creative. It pushed them to be creative. So and when you work with a developer in this case, they can find the other exemption, or the other or the other allowed. I wouldn't say it's a loophole. I say it's a other allowed ticket, which is basically transferring commercialized areas into residential ones. So basically, you take a commercial area, and you transfer it to residency. Basically, the developer buys the place, they re like they either like they renovate it or construct it as a whole, and basically transform it into residential area, a residential place. And that in itself is an opportunity, because you can get that ticket size. Of course, what you get for in terms of meter squared is much lower as in Egypt. And I feel like that's the case. Like it's unfair to compare meter square per meter square, because again, like Egypt has more space, and I feel like Europe is always a little bit less spacious. So,
You're
like I feel that's the case in general. So Europe is more spacious. So you're gonna have to expect that. I guess like 250,000 euros can get you like 30 plus meters squared, excluding balcony. So that's what in maybe downtown, around downtown, these areas. But that in itself presents an opportunity, right? Because those
For those who don't understand much about the golden visa requirements for Greece, used to be 250,000
yeah,
euros, and
yeah.
now it's no longer. How much did you
It's no
say?
longer.
100,000?
So I think 400 and 800,000. Anyways, like it's 400,000, but you will rarely find properties at this rate. And like it's gonna be 400,000 in certain areas, and I think 800,000 in others, like areas like Glyfada and all of that. And when you think about it, like in Glyfada, you will not find anything like in key places. You will not find any properties below that. So yeah, it's these places have already been, I would say, matured. The market has matured a lot, and those who got it at the deal, like those who bought those properties, have. So that's where the other opportunities to look, or the smaller ones. And I think like it's not a bad one. Like it's still like you're investing properties in smaller units is not bad, because there is shortages in certain markets. And the Greek market, I feel the shortage is for the student housing. And you'll notice that there has been more inflow of international students to Greece. A lot of people are studying in Greece, and there are from Egypt, there are from places around, private universities, what have you. And in general, the dorm culture there isn't strong, and so students need a place to stay. and that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity for Excel because they don't need big spaces. They can use smaller spaces to accommodate that. So this is something that you can consider and you can think about. And if you recall, when we were looking at Mexico, when I was touring with you in Mexico, I asked these questions because I wanted to know what did the market looks like. In Athens, for instance, it's becoming more and more international. There is like a couple of international schools that host Americans, that host Egyptians, that host people that want to study in Greece for like a semester or a year or what have you. And I see the opportunity lies there, which is not really, I wouldn't count as short term. I would count like as medium term.
Yeah.
Medium term tenants. So that's you can take advantage of that and still get the golden visa. What does the golden visa give you if you're a Mexican, or if like because a lot of times, like when I had this conversation actually 2 days ago with an Egyptian who holds a Caribbean passport and who's married to a Mexican. So he technically has those paths. And for me, like when I look at it, it's for the Mexican, you can like your passport can access the EU without any visa. So you don't have that requirement. You don't like from a tourist perspective, you don't need that access. But if you're thinking of it in terms of business and in terms of family opportunity and relocation, then yes, it gives you that access to be a resident in the EU and to open the bank account and open all of that. So that is access that you need to think about. It's not just, again, like when you can access for a limit of 90 days or not. So it's not just that because I can access the United States for 5 years, right, as a tourist, but being a resident is very different KYC. It's a very different KYC, right? Because once you're in, you're in. Once you're in, you're in. Like they go through the paperwork, you do the biometrics, you go all of that. You're part of the society and you're on track to become a citizen. It's a different layer of access for you and your family, and that's how I look at it. And the same goes with the UE golden visa and all of that. It gives you a different opportunity. It gives you different access, and if you have like multiple citizenships is always like the advice I was giving to that person is to get the golden visa on the weakest passport, right? So if you have the Egyptian passport, get the golden visa on that. So it strengthens it, and it's always tied. You can enter the EU with the Egyptian passport because it has a golden visa, and you can use the other passports, to travel freely. Or if you, God forbid, because I've seen those reports, like Norway's finding these loopholes against the Caribbean citizenships that they're trying to stop them and all of that. If that changes, and we've seen that with Vanuatu, Vanuatu suddenly, like you have like your original nationality in this case that has that, and you have like your resident, you're not a tourist, so it's gonna be more difficult for them to relinquish that from you or to get rid of you in that way.
Interesting. So you've been kind of studying the differences between different countries on not only on the visa status, also on the golden visa residency, a path towards. And what made you think about Mexico as a destination? Because when we met the tour, I mean, I think you had enough experience on like comparing side by side. I'm a keen also. I love beach properties. By the water. I feel like I appreciate more. And we're chatting about this together on the tour. Like, what made you pick Mexico as let's say you're staying here for a while, right?
Yeah, I am staying here for a while. I'm working to get my permanent residency here, and I'm bullish on Mexico. And the reason I'm bullish on Mexico because I believe Mexico is the biggest winner in the tariff wars, and that's what really got me here, because Mexico is in a unique position and has unique properties and fundamentals in terms of like Mexico as a real estate as a whole. Like the location of Mexico is prime, right? So it's one of those few places that has access on both sides of the ocean. Like only a couple of countries that have that. Canada is frozen, so you don't really leverage that. So it's like Russia; they don't have a lot of ports and all of that. The United States, the distance between one place and another is huge, so they have to use Panama Canal, right? And then there's Panama, the only country that has the other fourth country country that has two access, and it's a port city, safe, all of that. It has like it's a different market, right? But Mexico is a big country, but it's not big enough to make it too like I would say cruise like tiring per se to move one place to another. And the other thing is the infrastructure projects that triggered like Wison, like the Tren de Maya, and then there's the other train project that will connect Cancun, Quintero to Yucatan, and finally the one that will compete with Panama, the connection between the rails that will connect Atlantic to the Pacific. Again, that is geared to get and compete with Panama Canal in one way or another. And lately, you've seen Panama Canal has been struggling, and the only country that is able to compete with that, I think, is Mexico. That brings me like from a strategic macroeconomic level to opportunities, right? And the next thing I noticed was basically the number of temporary residencies that were issued, and I was surprised that after the United States, which is I expected Canada to be second, but no, I found China of all countries asking or getting the temporary residency, and that's why I say like I was just reading the report, like Mexico is becoming the biggest winner of there because with you cannot like it looks like all countries are kind of moving away and becoming more belligerent in one way or another. And they're moving away from that offshoring and offshoring all the resources because of politics. And they're more going towards nearshoring. And the biggest economy in the world is the United States, and then there's China. And they both trade with each other. They will always trade with each other. And I think like the best workaround for them both is Mexico. So is Mexico. And for American business owners, you can like it's closer to open factories here. It's closer to hire people here. There is the time zone difference as someone who always have been working remotely. So I do have like I do work 9 to 5 like anyone else, and I work remotely and I work with a lot of US companies. This is more convenient for me to work in Mexico and hire someone from Mexico. And I think the mentality is also doing the same thing. A lot of people are more likely to hire Mexicans over Indians or over someone else in a different time zone because the level of education is high and the reputation of the people here are hardworking. So, and that factors in positively, right? So now look at that and look at the bigger picture and look at the smaller picture. Where I come from, or where me as an investor can come in. If I'm someone who's interested to do business here, definitely I would be considering to build roots. And Mexico is one of the few countries where you can actually build long-lasting roots. And people, it's welcoming, and people tend to migrate and become Mexicans. And that opens up the opportunity, right? It's unlike other places where people feel unwelcome in one way or another. So I feel like the fact of the matter is that a lot of those temporary residents have a path to become Mexicans. That means that the money will most likely stay in Mexico, like that. And you can see that in a little bit in the currency strength of the peso. You can say it could be the factor of that, or it could be like the dollar is weakening, whatever it is. But the fact of the matter is that people have relocated to Mexico, done business in Mexico, and became Mexican and contributed positively into the economy, And if someone from Egypt, when I see like one of the biggest companies in F&B is called Lebanon or Libanos. I'm pretty sure like they're like fifth or sixth generation Mexicans, but they originally came from somewhere, which is Lebanon. So I think like the same goes. Like a lot of people will come, they'll contribute, and they will grow businesses here. They're not just gonna be the typical passive investor, because Mexico doesn't just have the ingredients for passive investments, like in Europe, for instance. Like in Europe, right? Like it seems like to me that the bureaucracy here is more business oriented. A lot of times, a lot of people are more keen to open businesses and factories, and the government look is moving in that direction and is moving into less bureaucracy as opposed to Europe. And that is something that makes me think yeah, why not come here and see in real estate? Because that will trigger all people to come and they can look for places to buy. And the next thing you'll look at is what are nice places to live.
Yeah.
Of course, some people will always live next close to their factories and what like Monterey, Mexico City, but you have some people that prefer a lifestyle, like they're like lifestyle investors. And what I learned recently, and where we in Egypt have, is a lot of people have a second home by the beach, and you can cater for Mexicans who want a second home, or for people who are moving, like would prefer to live there as long as the right fundamentals are in place. And looking for beach properties is difficult because you need to find the right fundamentals. You need to find a good location, right infrastructure, and then a good rate. And that's basically where like my priority and what to look for, and why I really liked what you showed me basically in Progresso, because it has those ingredients, right? It's close to a major city, and I feel and what I see, like the trend of the buildings like in Cairo is moving closer to New Cairo. And here in Merida, there's no new Merida per se, but actually
Yeah.
there was one. There's new center of Merida, which is northeast, and that is a big project. And it's kind of similar to Medinati project in Egypt and Rehab project, which are very promising and successful. Like actually they've been delivered. So there's that. But there is actually it's the parallel here is New Cairo encroachment or New Cairo expansion to Sokhna. What is Sokhna? Sokhna is basically the same, like I think Progress is a little bit better in terms of the infrastructure, is a little bit better. Sokhna is basically this port city in Egypt called by the Red Sea, and is almost like it's even further away than Progresso. So we're talking about if you're in New Cairo, not Cairo, like New Cairo, which is a district, like let's say like it's the closest thing to New Cairo is Temazon North. If you're in New Cairo, it will take you like around 1 hour to go to Sokhna. And the new administrative capital is actually in between Temaz, like New Cairo and Sokhna. It's in between there. So if you live like a lot of people are thinking that way. If I live in Sokhna, I get the lifestyle, I get the beachfront, I get the views, and I can go to work in the new Cairo capital or near the new administrative capital, which the government is pushing people to do that. But what I see here is that the push is moving naturally, right? It's pushed based on demand. It's not top-led approach. And for me, that is more promising when it happens organically rather than forced. And when that happens for me, I'm like, why just invest in the middle? Why I could just invest right away to the beach because it has something to offer.
Yeah.
Beach, when you go after work and you see the beach or you see green views, this is always something required, like mentally speaking.
Yeah.
And that's basically what I look for, because again, like when you look at it from a macroeconomic perspective and then narrow it down, there's a lot of cities. Mexico is one of those countries that are rightly dense. So you need to look which are the good cities with potential. And of course, like there are cities that are saturated, in my opinion. I'm not still a Mexico expert, but I feel like Merida, for example, is still hasn't matured. I feel like from the conversation, a lot of people are relocating. Mexicans are relocating. Mexicans are relocating to Merida, and it's becoming more and more popular. So that's the right place to be, and that's the right place to be. And it's close to beach towns, unlike CDMX, which is a capital, and it will remain irrelevant, but it has its clients. It has its clients. It has its different. But here, people who are more flexible, who are maybe more into commodity, like buying land for products, like I don't like coffee, like agriculture might be more relevant for them to live in Merida, or people who are investing in tourism because it's closer to the tourist sites. And again, and I see like from the way infrastructure is being built, the trains and all of that, I believe Progresso and other ports will become more relevant, and that will be a more opportunity to trade, and that's the bet that I'm placing in. And I feel like the infrastructure and the fundamentals are there.
Yeah.
there. So that's what I look for in general, right? Like what driven me in different countries like Greece, it's different. It's very different because it's an opportunity for a specific niche of clients, and a specific niche of clients which are Egyptians that have this struggle of access. But Mexico doesn't offer that. Like Mexico doesn't offer censorship by investment like in Egypt, all of that. And I think it doesn't need to. I think it doesn't need to because the numbers speak for itself. People will come to Mexico because of the tariff wars. I think like people are starting to come to Mexico before the tariff wars, but the tariff wars made Mexico become more on the radar. And the more it becomes like more trading and more people were put like will make it difficult to trade with one another, people will view Mexico as that option because it has the ports, it has everything, and it has the infrastructure to trade with the United States. People forget like Mexico is the number one seller to the United States and the number one buyer from the United States. So it's a very win-win relationship. So if you want to trade with the United States and the United States have trouble, maybe you should think trading with Mexico, having someone from Mexico or relocating there.
No, I like the fact that you were comparing because when people invest, it depends where they're from. But the beach, I think, is a prime location because
Of course.
it runs out of space eventually. Land, there's a lot of land,
Yeah,
but being on the beach, I think, is a premium location. Anywhere you see it, Egypt, Greece, Mexico,
everywhere.
UAE.
You know what's even better to be in a beach that is close to a capital city or a city that has all the fundamentals. And that's what I liked about the Yucatan Riviera, or what you call this area. Because it's literally, I was surprised that people think that this is a long drive, but it's not. It's not a long drive. Like again, maybe it's a long drive based on perspective, but
Yeah.
when I say that, like again, it's not a long drive. 20 minutes is not a long drive. I just took my son to take the vaccines yesterday, and it took more than 20 minutes. We went south to the country, so it's easier. It's closer to go to Progreso, and then for us, we live in Villamontejo. We live in Villamontejo, so it's a bit north. So it's closer for us to go to Progreso than to go to the vaccine, to take the vaccine. So it's a matter of perspective and the way, like if you have a car, so why not live by the beach? Why not live by the beach and have a unique property that if you want to offload, someone will always have a demand for. And again, it's not isolated, it's not in a remote area, because yeah, Mexico has very long shorelines, and definitely there's a lot of properties are in remote areas. But the way positions Progreso, Shalem, Yucapeltem, all these areas, they're in places where people are living, people are doing business for different reasons. It reminds me more of like a city of Hurghada. People live in Hurghada for different reasons. Tourism is not the main priority, right? People go there, they work there, they work for oil services, so the services like the food and for the oil rigs and the beach and the seaside. So it's a real city.
Yeah.
Investing there, you cannot go wrong. It will not have those hikes and oversupply and all that because people are living there for different reasons. And the same goes, like people are living there. There's of course people, retirees, and retirees live there. That's them. But there are other people who are working at the ports or having like we saw the marina. It has the biggest pier in the world. So it has those things. So it has those things going for it.
Yeah, no. Thanks for sharing all your experience with us and on comparing side by side different countries, because sometimes when I promote Mexico as a destination, and exactly for the same reasons that you said, the economy is growing. Merida, at least Yucatan, is close to the water, is close to a port. So it's not only like a nice vacation, sunny place, it's also, it makes sense economically. It's growing, and I think it has a lot of potential. And you coming all the way from Egypt, confirms that.
Yeah, and to make people at ease a little bit, because it's maybe as a Mexican you see things from a Mexican perspective, right? But like there's a big sign in Progreso that Walmart is opening there, right? Walmart, and we saw that sign. Walmart is opening a big branch in Progreso, and that tells you something, right? Like if a big brand like Walmart is considering to open shop there, that means that there is a shift in migration. There's like these guys just don't open shop without doing due diligence,
Yeah.
right? You want to be there before Walmart, technically, or if you want to be safer, you want to be there after Walmart to know where the proximity is, and that could give you an anchor, like where's Walmart located, so that will tell you where things are happening. So if you want to be close to where things are happening, great, use Walmart as an anchor. If you're more on the calm side, you can just go a little bit further away because that only tells you like that will only bring more business there. So definitely, like if you're gonna ask me, yeah, will there be office spaces? I don't think so, but I'm not there. I'm not there. It's not. I don't think it's built to be there. To be there. Like there's always gonna be like office space for tourism for specific things, but people can always commute, and 20 minutes is a very reasonable time to commute from Progreso to Merida. And like a lot of the premium business locations, like the Capital Tower, is going to be 25 minutes from Progreso. The two business centers that are in Villa Montejo is 20 minutes, and the Onion Tower is also on the same road. So you're not missing out on much.
Yeah.
So if you have a car, it's completely worthwhile.
Yeah, and it's true. It's a matter of perspective. Driving 25 minutes versus driving 2 hours, it's different. And I think Merida
Yep.
is very well positioned. And I'm glad that you mentioned this because now that we're comparing side by side cities and people who are thinking about investing abroad, they can get a better understanding and idea because, I mean, the world is a big place, but if you narrow down by the good economies, which countries are going up, which countries give you the best, lifestyle, the best cost for the investment, right? I think Mexico, to me, has been a winner for many years, but now
Yeah.
I think it proves itself and is very a competitive country, like it's positioning itself ahead.
Yeah, I think like in macroeconomically, there right things are happening. And people forget, like again, it's not just that. Like, so if you're looking at lifestyle, there's something for you in Mexico. If you're looking for business, there's something for you in Mexico. If you're looking to retirement, it's always has been like that, right? It's
Yeah,
always been a destination popular for Canadians and Americans, and that also gives you like precedent because Canadians and Americans have always been investing in Mexico, so it's not like completely alien. So transactions have been happening all along. And if you recall, like a lot of the locations we saw were owned by Americans, U.S.
yeah,
citizens, right? So, so it's not like it's unfamiliar territory. No, it's familiar territory. Maybe it's unfamiliar for you, but that's on you to find the right person to help you. And I think when we also made the decision, actually, we were comparing Mexico to Argentina, and given because Argentina was doing also like the leadership there was doing the right things, the stock market has grown, and we were considering that. We were considering Argentina greatly because it's also secure. It's also secure, unlike Brazil, which doesn't have the same reputation, basically. Um, but Mexico's more established. Like Mexico is closer to the world than Argentina is, and that matters. And that matters. Like you can always, yeah, of course. Like again, closeness is perspective, but if you want to go back to the Middle East, like myself, and if you want to travel, you're only one transit away, maximum two transits away. Unlike in Argentina, where you're gonna need at least two transits. So here, like, there's direct connection to Air France. Air France, like from Cancun, Cancun to Paris, Paris to Egypt, for example. Or you can take from Merida, which like people forget, Merida has an international airport. that has a Merida has an international airport. That's something that you need to consider. It's a real city. It's a big city with its own airport. I didn't see it, but it's an international airport. It's an international airport. There's connecting flights to Atlanta, to Miami, and from there you can go directly from Merida, Miami, Egypt, for example, or like what have you. So there's this connection, and you need to consider these things because proximity is it's not just what is close; it's how you can be connected to the world as well. So there's the train Maya, there's the airport, and there's solid infrastructure in terms of roads. So like it has all the ingredients of a capital city per se, and it is an administrative capital of Yucatan, which is having lived there, having lived there is one of the most secure areas ever. Um, and people like may have a different perspective on Mexico, but I can safely say I can walk at night. I've been walking at night, taking my walks at night in Yucatan, in Merida, and is as safe as Dubai, is as safe without like the cameras, without all the cameras and all of that. But again, it's safe. So I would compare it to Cairo. I think Cairo is safe. I think Cairo is safe. Actually, might be safer. Actually, it's safer than Cairo. At least here you have a lot of parks to walk around in. You have a lot of pedestrian-friendly areas to walk around in. Cairo, not so much.
Well, thank you so much for giving your perspective on comparing countries, and I think we're excited to see where your next investment goes. So hopefully Mexico.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. That's what I'm trying to convince my partners in, and definitely there's solid opportunities. And thank you so much for taking that tour. It's actually like one of the best tourist things that I did, like taking an investment tour. I wish like a lot of countries did that because navigating, especially like maybe Americans, Canadians are familiar with Mexico. They travel as close to them. But if you're someone that's traveled a long way, like myself, and you're still looking to do research and development, R&D, so you need to have at least like, basics and to see the basics, and you helped me do that, and I appreciate that. Like that, this is like has been very educational for me. Has been very educational to see what the opportunities are there, and yeah, talking to different people, salespeople, and different developers and perspectives who cater to different clients, and you see a lot of them have been sold out, like a lot of units. And for me, actually, the most interesting, and I'm bullish for, is the apartment scene in Merida. I think apartment scene is Merida is like the UAE's townhouses scene. So the UAE, the opportunity lands into villas and townhouses. I think there's oversupply of apartments oversupply of apartments in the UAE, in Dubai specifically. Here, there's an oversupply in typical housing, like townhouses and villas, because that's where most of people live. So actually having an apartment is a unique thing. I live in an apartment, and honestly, living in an apartment in Merida is amazing because there's not many apartments, and Merida has very nice views because it's a lot green. It's too green. So that's something people should consider when they're doing. And that's something unique in itself, because a lot of the migrants that move to Merida, they come from an apartment culture and they don't find a lot of it.
No, so no, we're looking forward to having you as a neighbor in Merida. Hopefully
Thank you. Thank you, Natalie.
Anybody who wants to ask any questions to Marwan, either from a personal perspective, a professional perspective, his experience as an expat here in Mexico will be great. So they can contact you, and we'll leave your information below. And thanks again for all the insights. Now we're able to compare Mexico to 3 different countries: Greece, Egypt, and UAE.
Absolutely. And it's very different. Again, like if you're looking at it, I give you the perspective from all sides, right? And your decision is based on your decision, like what you're looking for. Everything has its pros and cons, and it really depends on what you're looking for as a priority. And I'm happy, to share, if you reach out to me, I'll share you how I made the decision process and what were my priorities and how I came about to selecting Mexico over other countries in North and South America. So my main comparison was Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina, and how I came about to make a decision. I'm more than happy to share my experience. And if you can follow me on LinkedIn, you'll start seeing me putting my stories, and I've been getting a lot of conversations because moving to Mexico as an Egyptian is very alien.
Yeah.
It's very alien. It's a very alien idea because Egyptians are stuck to the legacy brands of USA, Canada, and Australia. That's basically where Egyptians typically move to. So when you tell someone that you're moving to Mexico, and most people know that my wife is not Mexican, so they're like, that's the only valid reason Egyptians can move to Mexico if you're married to a Mexican. But they don't know that there's a lot of opportunities. So when you start educating, that's when I started educating people, a lot of interest came, and a lot of people think, and I think, like, as much as people benefit, like as much as I communicated benefits of Mexico, I feel like it's the only drawback of Mexico is that it is neighbors to USA and Canada, because people will always compare them to USA and Canada, and USA especially has a very strong marketing machine on promoting itself as the best place in the world. and giving a different perspective on Mexico, and it's not that. I want to say that, being here, like, to my Egyptian friends, to anyone who's never been in Mexico, in my part of the world, Mexico is not bad. Mexico is a full-blown economy. It's a big economy. It's the biggest winner of the tariff wars, and you need to come and see it yourself. It's not just a honeymoon place. It's not just Cancun. It's not just Cancun. It's not just Cancun and Mexico City. It's a full-blown economy. And people forget, let me put it in perspective again. Mexico is the biggest buyer and seller to the United States. And the size of sales, or the size of products exported to the United States, is $500 billion. Let that sink in and look at your country, how much billions is exporting to one country. It will never be the same size. Like, it will rarely be the same size. This is almost like China level numbers. Of course, China is a much bigger economy, but think of that, Mexico as an emerging market that is already exporting $500 billion of goods to the United States alone. So I want that to sink in, and then use that knowledge, zoom in on the destinations, zoom in on where you can do business, or where you want to invest. And you don't want to miss out like people who missed out in investing in Cancun, although albeit people investing in Cancun because of tourism, or Playa del Carmen because of tourism reasons, and like it serves like the expat community. A lot of digital nomads are relocating there. But look at it as well on how your investment and you're presenting value to the Mexican economy, like where your investment is giving value to Mexicans who are relocating. There's a lot of migration internally, and to other nationalities that are quickly moving in. So yeah, that's my 2 cents.
No, thank you. We learned a lot today, and I'm gonna put your LinkedIn in the description below. And anybody who wants to learn more about citizenship by investment, not only to Mexico but to other countries, you can reach out to Marwan. Thank you again.
Thank you, Nathalie. Have a good one.
Thank you for joining us on the Real Estate Investment Nomad podcast. I hope today's episode has inspired you to explore new horizons in global real estate. Remember, the world is full of opportunities waiting to be discovered. And with the right insights, you can turn those opportunities into successful investments. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps us bring you the best content possible. Don't forget to follow us in social media for more resources and updates. Until next time, my friends, this is nathalysalas, encouraging you to think big, invest globally, and transform your real estate journey. Safe travels and happy investing.